Hello, everybody, and welcome to PASCO Laboratories. I am Heidi E. Brennan, where the E stands for everybody must be wondering where JP is.
Well, I know, normally JP says the P stands for something, but P this week is going to be for Pennsylvania because JP is in Pennsylvania on vacation. So we're stepping it up and we're going to show you some great ideas for how you can think about next year and enriching what your students may have as experiences to get them excited for science.
Absolutely. So we're unveiling today the PASCO 7. So essentially, this is a blueprint for your school year that ranges from high school down to elementary, where you have access to student activities, digital resources for teachers, videos, and of course, all of that hands-on equipment that you want to get back into your students' hands. So should we start off by showing them some of these kits?
Absolutely, and like any great adventure, the Magnificent Seven were in those movie series. I think what we're going to find is that these topics are going to be something that resonates and gets your students excited, from chemistry, for instance, to biology. We've got things for ag science, for actual physics course, and
middle school and elementary.
So those are going to compose of opportunities for our students to be able to have ways to augment, maybe when you get them back into class next year and you want to stimulate their interests, maybe to make up for their own sort of drive to get them to cover maybe things that you feel like you didn't get through in previous years or their previous year because of COVID had left them out. And so you're going to get the chance to give them really hands-on experiences. Now, each kit, as we have these set up for enrichment, is going to be something that will have equipment in here and a set of experiments that are described. Okay, so they'll give you several experiments to go through, and the equipment that comes in particularly is going to be then able to be hooked to your computer through a Bluetooth kind of connection so that you can do your own experiments. And now this one is set up just so you can see what that would look like in terms of the hands-on aspect. So if we are taking this, and I've turned this instrument on, this is a pressure sensor, and I've got it hooked to a syringe of a set volume of gas. We'll go ahead and start that experiment. And the only thing I'm going to do is we're going to take and move this known volume of gas to other volumes and see what happens to the pressure. And that's known as Boyle's law. I'll make sure it's nice and tight so we don't lose air in this. I'll first pull this out and I'll get my brave assistant Heidi to hit the check mark for me. So here's at 60 mils. All she needs to do is just hit the check mark.
Okay.
Excellent. Now I'm going to go down to 50 mils. Go ahead. And then we're going to go to 40 mils. Okay. Then we're going to go to 30 mils. Awesome. Then we're going to compress it, but by a little less. So we're going to go to 25 mils. Yep.
Okay.
And then to 20 mils. And then to 15 mils.
You there?
Yep.
All right.
Awesome. Now the only thing we have to do is to then go ahead and stop. And we will take a look at that relationship between volume and pressure to see that there is, this great inverse relationship. And we got a weird curve because that's when I was hooking this up, and I think we got a first value in there, which is always a little stray, but that's okay. Like a little data like that, sometimes if it's easy to explain, that's what we're talking about. When we're out there playing and interacting, those are going to be fantastic ways for your students to say, well, where did that come from? And again, it was a goof up on my part when we were just starting, when we captured these. Not that that's bad. What's cool, that didn't take any time at all.
Right, exactly.
You can do this over again in a second. And so that's all what we're talking about in terms of enrichment, getting your students there. You'll find that there's plenty of experiments in here. The pages are going to be listed on as well, the product where you can get these kits. Each of the kits is shown in more detail at PASCO.com when you get to /blueprint, but we're going to talk about each of these. In chemistry specifically, we've got a pressure sensor that's going to be available. We've got temperature sensor so that you can determine things from heat capacity, labs that are maybe at the beginning of the year as you talk about heat and heat flow. We've got a pH sensor so that you can get those. Those will be a little later in the year typically when you talk about solutions. All of those are going to be great. We've got atom kits and some periodic tables so that you'll be using those again throughout the year, and there's other labs that are associated with any of these kits that if you go to the page to take a look at them, that will give you ideas of other ways to use them than just the several that are printed that come with the kit themselves. So that's chemistry.
All right. Let me make some room for you.
Fantastic. Next, in terms of biology, what's cool about biology 1, you'll still get the same set of labs that come printed in the kit itself. It comes with a great storage solution. And so what's nice about that is you can dig in there and find several of those labs that will be able to be worked with the equipment. As you can see on the page as well, the equipment that comes in the kit for the enrichment is going to be the pressure sensor. So a lot of times gas reactions are happening that you want to be able to see. The changes that you can show are going on in a like roots sucking up water, and they can show some pressure changes. You can see carbon dioxide changes in the plant, and you can quantify what's happening with photosynthesis. It's not that, or even that you can put little animals into a container, like a little bottle, like mealworms or something, and see as they breathe what happens to the carbon dioxide levels. It's inverse process, or it's supplementary process of photosynthesis, and you can see as that leaves take up carbon dioxide. And so in all of those processes that happen, you're seeing evidence of things that are happening at the microscopic level, and you can explain it with visible kind of changes, like, for instance, acids and base chemistry that's going on inside the body, and that are stabilized with, like, buffers, for instance, if you're talking about biology. So that's a great set of activities we can do with biology. In the ag world, of course, you're interested in very similar to the biology, but you're interested in things like soils, conductivity. How salty is the soil? Is there nitrates or phosphates for fertilizer? And so you can see those with a conductivity sensor. You can see directly plant growth if you want to compare, for instance, does photosynthesis speed up or slow down in certain conditions? Is warmth or cold or acid rain or other kinds of impacts? And you can check that out with the carbon dioxide sensor. And so you can follow those. As a matter of fact, the colorimeter that's included in that kit that will come with this can also be used not just to show what's in solution, like if there's a color to your water that's going through the creek, but you can also look at the turbidity, and those are going to become important for the life that exists down into creeks in terms of fish or monitoring those kinds of things. Some people may have that as part of their aquaculture studies, and that's ag science. And the last one, of course, for physics, in terms of enrichment, that you can go on and investigate. We love, again, a set of lessons that are going to be included that you can do several activities for. And when you go online, again, you'll see that there's even more that are from other lab books, but the 7 are just printed to get you started. You'll have things like, for instance, a motion sensor. Your students can walk and try to repeat what graphs mean in terms of motion graphs and position and time graphs. You can see in the kinematics that you can study from there in your first few units, and move on to using how force changes that motion. This is a force sensor that you can either put a bumper or a hook on to pull things or push things. As you continue into that year, you can also study how electronics work with volts, voltmeter and ammeter, to see how circuitry is going. So all of those are going to be ways to get your students to have hands-on experiences and inspire imagination, if you want it as a supplement. If they're coming in, like I said, you have a club or something, or some way you want to get your kids, sort of stepping up for what may have been a slower year last year, or that you want to use as demos, and you can get them to show up on the graphs like we showed, but then have them up on a big screen, and they can be talking and interacting with you. But it's a great way to get started using these.
I like how you gave all those different opportunities, because that's what this program's about. It's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for you to decide what your school, what your district needs, and you built around that need. So it's pretty nice. But we are not done.
No.
We also have a middle school offering, which you also get the motion sensor within this one as well. And what excites me about this, and when I talk to high school physics teachers, is they always say, I'd love for my students to get some exposure to position and graphs so they understand that motion and movement and how to describe it using a graph. So that's a great way to build capacity with students.
And we just highlighted that for physics, and you think, well, how can you differentiate between, something that's an upper level and something middle school? But really, we want students to have maybe a mathematical understanding what motion looked like, but for students to experience say, hey, what's this, this graph look like just in terms of steepness, or, they just get concepts and they just start building their experience base by seeing
Absolutely.
those kinds of motions. And so there are different levels of questions in terms of those labs, but they're great for middle and for high school.
Absolutely. And getting in with that, you also get a pH sensor, and here you can get into acid rain and weathering and the effects that has, how humans impact the environment.
And common things like just what foods or household common
absolutely.
products.
Introduction
You
to
bring in and
acid
say, hey, let's
bases.
test this, and some
Yeah.
kid's going to be like, what's my spit like? And they're going to try that. But you
I
never
don't know about that
Well,
one.
you never know where that spit ends up, but they'll always be curious, and that's what we really want to stimulate.
And we have a light sensor, so you can go more in depth on light behavior, but it's also multi-use. You have an ambient light temperature sensor here, so if you wanted to do some investigations with plant growth in different locations, you could do that as well. And then, of course, our temperature sensor is versatile across the board with multiple investigations from chemistry and physics at the middle school level. So that's middle school.
Yeah, and even some applications like, your parking lot gets a different temperature than your sidewalk and they're both outside. Those kinds of things would be great. Or your windows, how cold do they get or warm from the outside.
Yep.
So you can see how the insulation in your building works. So they're great. Just get them out and get investigating.
I know, which is why I'm very, very excited that we have the elementary kit as well. That's my heart. I love the elementary kiddos. And here again, motion sensor. We have a great application with MatchGraph where the students can get engaged in that piece. We have the temperature sensor, and you can do great things. When I was a teacher, I used to do evidence of chemical changes, but it would just be something they saw, like some carbon dioxide bubbles were created, things along those lines, carbon dioxide. But here with the temperature sensor, I can actually show that there's also temperature change.
Yeah, a little more subtle, and they can then see them.
And it's simple. It's things like baking soda and vinegar. I have that stuff in my home, so I can bring that kitchen science into experience for my students. And again, you have a light sensor, and let's talk about engineering products, engineering applications here. So if students want to investigate greenhouses, they can use this. Either use the temperature sensor to see how greenhouses work with heat and how that fluctuates, and then also with light. So great applications here. Going on just beyond the science, you can do engineering activities as well. And we do want to point out that, yeah, these tools are great, but they work with our SparkView software. That's one of the highlights here. So students are seeing real-time data captured. They're seeing it come up on a graph. They can manipulate it. They can work through those mathematical practices as well.
And the coolest thing is that all of that, for the student data collection, if it's on their mobile devices, they can put it on theirs for free and then be accessing these. Again, you say, well, it's just a single kit. How do I get my students? Man, you could get 5 students lined up and they could go through a lab really quickly, or some kind of, like I say, it's all about building experiences for your students. And so what a fun way, whether they've got some mobile equipment that they can hook up and be measuring things and just asking questions.
So we got one more thing. We got the 7 now. It's a new product that we are carrying, and I'm pretty excited about it. This company has done some extensive work with the Boston Museum, with Engineering as Elementary, and now with PASCO. It is MindLab's Energy and Circuits. So essentially, this is augmented reality.
Whoa!
Yeah. So the students are going to be learning about energy transfer, transformations, circuits, and they're going to be learning it through gamification, essentially. So they can use an iPad, they can use their cell phones, and with the software download, the students get these great cards, and they put either Adam or Ann in the corner of the screen, and they come alive. They wave at the kids, and then they give them challenges to work through. So they also have cards with 12-volt batteries, AA batteries, switches, LEDs, little light bulbs, and the students manipulate and create an actual circuit that comes to life where they're actually seeing how the energy is moving through the system and how closed circuits work and what happens when they are not closed. So what an awesome, exciting thing for kids to do at the elementary level.
Absolutely. From experiences, just so they build a vocabulary to call from when they get onto the levels where they get to here, where we look for mathematical relationships or explaining things in a more theoretical manner or more abstract. We want to help students to go from the very concrete to the more descriptive sort of ways. And in that sense, we've got a magnificent 7 set of types of kits that you can be offering science for your students at your school.
Don't forget the videos. I mentioned them again because this is a blueprint, so you use this however you wish. You can use the videos with students. They are student-facing videos where we talk about how to set up things, some sample data collection.
Or you as a teacher may say, well, I want to see that and I want to
Yep.
get a quick feeling for those. Find that video and say, oh, okay, I get what they're doing, or I'm going to change this a little bit. And again, all of those are just great ways. Let's say your student misses and they just have to see it, or you want them to see it before they show up so that they have a little bit of background in there,
And the data files. We give the data files that you can get on the website as well. So if you don't have time for students to do the analysis in class because you spent all this great time actually exploring and collecting the data.
Or they miss, or they lose their data for some reason, which always happens.
They miss a day,
Yep.
absolutely. No excuses. You get the data file and you can actually work through the analysis at a later time. So, Roger, I'm pretty excited, but what do you want to do? Do you want to learn more about this? Do you want pricing? Do you want to be made aware when we have training sessions that revolve on these and how to get started? So where do we tell folks to go?
Absolutely. So we've given you a good walkthrough and sort of shown you what's inside of these kits. If you go off to pasco.com/blueprint, you'll see that there's some background information if you want to be able to follow that up from what we've shown you that you can see more about. We're talking about the year-round sort of enrichment. And last week, if you look at our PASCO Live, you can see what we talked about in terms of the blueprint for the summer.
And it also really helps out because it talks about the ESSER allowances, that whole act, and how it aligns into that funding.
So a lot of money's
that's
been more
great.
available at the district level, particularly for you that because of COVID, that's now available. And so that could be used in these cases. And here we're trying to give you some background so that if you say, hey, we could be using it for this. But if you just want to know when we have new releases of, let's say, hey, we're going to do a set training for PASCO Live, or we're going to post some videos that are very appropriate for the activities that go with these, that you can go down to the bottom of that page on pasco.com/blueprint and drop us, just a name so that we can let you know specifically about the kinds of opportunities, videos, and support that we will be offering throughout the year for these kits. And we'd love to have you sign up so that you just hear
absolutely.
from us periodically. It's not deluged and you won't, it's just for your help, I think, in terms of those resources.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, thank you for joining us, for spending time and learning about our magnificent seven.
That's right.
I absolutely love that reference. And hopefully these tools can help you get back to that hands-on approach with students in the next school year.
And here at PASCO Labs, this is Heidi Brennan. I'm Roger P., where P this week says, hey, when the boss is away, we get to play with all this fantastic equipment. And we hope you have some great learning and have a good day.
Take care.